Hey guys, David Essel here. At any given time in the United States, about 40 million people or more are struggling with depression. That lasts a couple years at the least. And some people are struggling at such a great level that the only option is to try to figure out a way out of this world. Other people struggle in silence. They don't want to tell anyone about what's going down. Other people struggle very publicly, where they're constantly talking and reaffirming the fact that they're battling with some great depression. The other day I was asked to speak to a group, and in the middle of the presentation someone raised their hand and they said, yeah, but you've never struggled with clinical depression before. How do you know about A, B, C, D, E? And I said, wow. You know, a lot of people look at people like myself in the world of motivation, and we're always upbeat and we're always excited, and we have new projects going on constantly as people that never have struggled with depression, and it couldn't be further from the truth. And I remember how mine started, and I don't really believe that there's many of us that struggle from a genetic perspective. Depending on the studies that you follow, that we might say that 10% of depression or 15% of depression could have a genetic link. More often than not, it's created by lack of coping skills. In my family, my dad went through a Great Depression when he was laid off. My sister went through a Great Depression. I've had relatives struggling with depression, but over the years I found that it wasn't so much a genetic link, even though it might look like it. It was more that none of us really knew how to cope with these type of life struggles. And from a male's perspective, oh my God, men, shit. We don't talk about any struggle, which is one of the greatest reasons why depression can build and create what it did in my life. One of the most outrageous years. It went on for a couple years, but I remember the last year that I was struggling with it. I didn't want to be here. I knew how to end it. I had the materials. And just before I went and pulled that final act, I reached out and scrambled for help, which I'll tell you in a minute about what happened. But let me tell you what the cause of it for many of us is. And now, as a counselor for 27 years and a life coach for 27 years, I often spend quite a bit of my time working with people who are in great states of depression or great states of high anxiety. And when we work with them, the very first thing we say is, let's take away the shame and the guilt. Let's work together. Let's be open and honest about everything that you're feeling, because I wasn't. As a guy in the late 80s, I was coming off this most incredible first 10 years of my career, traveling all over the world, 40 weeks a year, in countries I never thought I would examine seeing, and speaking in front of massive audiences. The largest was 5,000. I was going into this extreme height of my professional career, and all of a sudden, things started being pulled away. And in the pulling away, what I found is that my identity was pulled away. I had made this huge financial gamble to hire this marketing company that basically left me high and dry. I had used all my money promoting the fact, or giving it to them to promote me as a speaker. Now they were going to put me on the road even more. And their speaking fees they were going to get me were even higher. And as we were supposed to go ahead and start this massive new part of my career in 1990, they pulled out. They left me high and dry. And I was broke. Living on the beach, expensive home, totally broke. I didn't know how to handle it. So I continued to increase my use of drugs and alcohol, which is what many of us do. It's called self-medication. It had gotten to such a high point of not knowing how I was going to pay for my home and cars and all this other stuff that I had, that I made a trip to the store because I couldn't cope with life. On the way home, with all the materials laid out, I made a frantic call. I was living in Siesta Key, Florida. I made a frantic call to a psychiatrist who was booked for the next 6 weeks. Instead of waiting, I showed up in his office and they took me in. And everything started to change. But I want to tell you something, how I got there. Overuse of alcohol and drugs to mask my depression, self-medication, not wanting to share with anyone what I was truly feeling and going through, not having any idea, even though I was a counselor and a life coach, of how the hell to deal with my own sadness, my loss of identity as a male, knowing that my income was shrinking, I had almost no money left, and my identity was a successful, motivational, international speaker. It was stripped away, and I thought I was nothing. If it wasn't for the psychiatrist and Ina, my counselor, there's no way I could have pulled out of that on my own. Everyone who watches this video, I want you to know, first of all, you're not alone. But secondly, you got to ask for help. And if the first person you reach out to doesn't help, or you don't connect with personally or whatever, reach out to the next one. If I can help you in any way, go ahead and email me at talkdavid.com. I'll be doing future videos in the near future about the steps, other steps I took to get out of that Great Depression. It was one of the scariest years of my life. It's something I wish no one would ever go through. And if I would have been humble enough and intelligent enough to reach out and ask for help, I would have never gotten into the position I was. It took a lot of work to pull myself out of that. It took medication. It took counseling multiple times a week. And it was worth every penny and every effort. I never went back to that dark space again, and you don't have to either. If I can help, please email me at talkdavid.com. I'll be doing more videos on this very topic in the near future. But between now and then, if you don't ask me to help you, make sure you ask someone else, a minister, a priest, a counselor, a therapist, a rabbi, someone who can sit and listen. I'm David Essel. Have a beautiful day.